The universe doesn't whisper warnings to the weak. It sends storms to its warriors. If you're still standing, it's because you were meant to lead the flood. They schemed like cowards, hiding in shadows, thinking you were soft. They planned every move, aligned every pawn, and thought they had checkmate. But they forgot one thing: the board doesn't move without the breath of the universe, and you, the chosen, are the storm that bends the game itself. They weren't just fighting you. They picked a fight with the current of the cosmos, and now they're gasping for air while you're surfing the tidal wave. They never saw coming. Before we go deeper into this message, make sure you like this video and subscribe to help spread this message to more chosen ones every time you do. You help signal to the platform that this truth matters. And the more chosen who wake up, the more the illusion crumbles. So here's the truth they can't swallow. They launched their master plan with precision, like it was going to be some grand finale, your finale. But the universe flipped the script. What they thought would be your coffin became your stage. They brought hammers but ended up building your platform. That's the terrifying power of being chosen. You don't just survive the trap, you turn it into a throne. Chosen ones, listen. You were never alone, not for a second. The moment you were marked by the universe, you became a walking contradiction to their reality. You weren't supposed to make it, and when you started questioning your own light, doubting your worth, feeling abandoned, that was exactly what they wanted. That's the only battle they ever had a shot at winning. Convincing you that you're powerless, but you didn't just carry the light. You are the light, and when light remembers what it is, darkness runs. They're not just mad because you survived. They're haunted by the fact that their biggest move became your biggest lesson. Haunted by your rise, haunted by your silence. Because even your stillness is loud. You didn't come out of the fire, you became the fire. They stare in disbelief because they don't understand how someone they tried to break now walks like the universe itself, cleared the path. And here's what messes them up the most. You're not even fighting them. You're not. When you look back, you are building, growing, and creating. And the more you move in alignment with who you are, the more their illusion crumbles apart. Your very presence disrupts everything they thought was stable, and you become the question that they can't answer. The error in their system is a glitch in their manufactured matrix to the chosen ones. Never again should you allow your mind to betray your mission. Your doubt is their only weapon, and when you forget who you are, you give them power that they have never earned. Therefore, make sure to straighten your crown, even if it is heavy, because your existence is warfare and your purpose is prophecy in motion, not the divine kind, but the kind that shifts timelines and collapses traps just by walking through them. Remember that they failed not because they were weak, but because you were never breakable. Now they are bamboozled by their so-called master plan, which is just another chapter in your origin story. Are you ready for part 2? Before we reveal how their master plan turned into your personal power upgrade, take a moment to consider if you have ever felt like an outcast, a black sheep, or someone who didn't fit in because you were built to stand out. If you have ever felt like this, drop the number 77 in the comments. That's how we know you're one of the real ones. This message isn't for the crowd, it's for the few who were never meant to blend in. Your isolation was never a punishment. It was preparation, and now let's break it down, step by step. Stay sharp. If you're truly chosen, you won't look away, number one, from smoke and mirrors to smackdowns and miracles. They tried to break you in the dark, forgetting that stars are born in blackness, and now your shine is their sentence. They banked everything on your collapse, quiet meetings in hidden corners, silent nods, whispered approvals like some grand secret would finally silence the noise you were destined to make. They built a trap, but the universe handed you the blueprint. They studied your silence, mistook your retreat as defeat. But what they didn't see was the reload you weren't hiding. You were aligning with every step they made against you. They pulled the trigger on their own, unraveling. You didn't just survive the chaos. You became the clarity. The plan was neat on paper: suppress the spark before it spreads. Inject confusion, isolate the source, weaken the will. And yet there you stood, glowing, brighter than ever, rising. Not despite the attack, but because of it. The universe doesn't choose the calm. It picks the ones who were forged in war, the ones who carry thunder in their veins. You were never chosen to blend in or play nice. You were chosen to unmake systems, and that's exactly what your energy does. Expose every weak foundation, burn through every illusion, dismantle every fake empire that tried to write your ending. They thought they were clever, tampering with frequencies, trying to bend reality to fit their fear. But here's the thing about being chosen. You don't need to fight the system when the system itself starts glitching. Just because you woke up, they weren't just playing against you. They were playing against the universal current that flows through you. And when the universe recognizes its own, it doesn't whisper. It moves every room. They tried to shut you out of every conversation they hijacked. Every opportunity they blocked. It all backfired. Not just because you endured, but because you transmuted their poison into fuel. You walked through sabotage like it was mist. They threw shade, and the universe turned it into your spotlight. You didn't just escape, you elevated to the chosen ones. Stop doubting your own gravity. You are not a glitch. You are not too much. You are not imagining the opposition. They see you. They feel you. You shake the ground they stand on, and that terrifies them. And yes, you may have moments where the weight of isolation feels unbearable, but don't forget, loneliness is often the waiting room of greatness. Stop mistaking silence for absence. The universe doesn't yell, it positions, and it has been positioning you even when you thought nothing was happening. Let me ask you something, and ask it loud into your own soul. If you weren't a threat, why did they invest so much into trying to stop you? Why the smear campaigns? Why the sudden friends turned spies? Why the delayed doors, the manipulated outcomes, the backhanded compliments laced with envy? It's not because you were weak. It's because every time you speak, move, rise, or simply exist, it tears through their false narratives like a wildfire on dry lies. And still some of you doubt. You let fear in you wonder, why me? You even apologize for your shine, dim yourself for comfort, question your gut when it's the most divine instrument you've been gifted. Stop that hesitation is the last thread they're holding on to. Let it snap. You weren't built for pity. You were built to disturb, to rattle cages, to walk into spaces and shift the balance just by breathing. That's not arrogance, it's cosmic architecture. And every time you forget that, you do their work for them. This wasn't a lucky break. This was a cosmic snapback. The universe doesn't miss it, doesn't forget its investments, and it sure as hell doesn't abandon its chosen. You are the echo of everything they tried to erase. Your clarity came from chaos. Because the storm was never meant to drown you. It was meant to crown you. So here we are. They launched a master plan to bury you, and now they sit there dumbfounded, watching you rise from their ashes like you were built from fire and prophecy itself. Their mirrors cracked, their smoke cleared, and now they're choking on the air you made pure. This is the point at which you stop wondering why it occurred and begin to realize that everything was arranged in your favor from the very beginning. Number two, they were built for the war that they believed would end you. They came to conquer a soul, but they ended up orbiting a force field that they couldn't escape from. Welcome to the battlefield. They made your kingdom by accident. They didn't just make a mistake. They underestimated a cosmic equation that they couldn't solve. You weren't just born for this battle. You are the battle that they thought they could corner crush, and silence is the very blueprint for the collapse of their empire. Control, and here's the part that's been burning through their minds since the fallout began. You didn't even fight them directly, you just existed, and that was enough to unravel everything they built in secret while they plotted in whispers. You were evolving in silence while they set the stage for your destruction. You became the storm that shattered their foundation. Your influence, your presence, your spiritual gravity had already expanded past the point of return. You didn't chase them. You didn't threaten them. You simply stood still, and they spiraled into your orbit like moths flying straight into the furnace they built for you. They wanted a reaction. They got a revelation, chosen one. You remember those weeks, don't you? When it all hit at once, when the pressure collapsed in from every angle, when your closest connections cracked like glass under heat, when your money dried up like a faucet, suddenly shut off, when your body gave out, your mind ran in circles, and it felt like opportunity had packed up and left. That wasn't life happening randomly. That was a synchronized strike, a carefully timed ambush. Their fingerprints are all over that timeline. But here's something they'll never understand. You're not built like them. You were never wired to break under pressure. You metabolize chaos. You digest destruction, and you convert it into direction. Where they saw a win, they birthed your evolution because they didn't know what they were pressing on. They thought they were crushing clay, but they were activating a diamond. You never needed a map. Your spirit has a compass. They'll never decode them. They believed that removing resources would strip your power. However, what they didn't realize is that the universe is the source of all power. Doesn't fund the chosen with money or favors. It funds them with momentum, with revelation, with insight. And you turned drought into design. You turned isolation into instruction. You turned betrayal into a bridge. Every angle they hit you from was absorbed, analyzed, and repurposed into your ascent. Let's make it plain. Your spiritual perception is surgical, where others panic at the storm. You look for the pattern. You can feel what's real. You know when the universe is recalibrating things in your favor. Even when it looks like you're being buried, they forgot that the chosen aren't destroyed by pressure. They are activated by it. And now they are stuck spiritually, energetically, and mentally trapped in the very web that they spun for you. You didn't have to touch them. Your growth was sufficient. Your refusal to fold was a slap in the face. And your comeback was a cosmic earthquake. It rattled things that they thought were solid. It exposed people who were pretending. It revealed systems that they were hiding behind. And now they are unable to run away from what you've become, because what you've become exposes them by default. Some of you are still wondering why they are stuck in this situation. It had to be this difficult. Why the betrayal had to cut that deep. Why the pressure had to last that long. And you ask, was I not already good enough? Haven't I suffered enough? Let me tell you the truth. The universe wasn't punishing you. It was proving that you are a threat because you carry the code. You carry a signature frequency that disrupts every system that is not built on truth, and that's why they targeted you. Not because you were weak, but because you were waking up. Also, don't forget that the universe never needed your enemies to like you. It just knew that you were a threat. Needed them to move. Every attack triggered a divine repositioning. You weren't being buried, you were being replanted. And now they look around confused. How are you still standing? How are you still speaking? How are you still shining? Because you were born for this. This isn't a setback. This is your storyline. This is the kind of war you were designed to win, not because you outnumbered them, not because you had more power in the moment, but because the universe itself threw its weight behind you. And to those chosen ones still doubting, wake up. You've seen too much, endured too much, overcome too much to question your authority. Now this is not the time to second guess your calling. You've been authenticated by affliction, validated by resistance, sealed by survival. Every scar is your proof. Every sleepless night was a training ground. Every loss recalibrated your alignment. You've been tuned to truth, and that truth, it terrifies your enemies. You don't walk with ordinary energy. You're not an influencer. You're an interference to systems of control, patterns of deception, cycles of mediocrity. That's why did it feel like hell broke loose when you decided to rise? Because they felt the shift, and that shift was your birthright coming online. The next time you wonder if you are still in the fight, understand this. The moment you woke up, the battle was never about winning. It was about witnessing, about letting them watch as everything they tried to stop became the very force that elevated you. They wanted to bring you down, but you turned into a revolution. They engineered destruction. You became design. They triggered collapse, and you built a kingdom from the rubble. Now they're trying to take you away. Stuck still trying to figure out where they went wrong, but you know the answer, and it's simple. They didn't realize that you were born for this battle, and they certainly weren't prepared for the one thing that they can't fake, manipulate, or copy. They can't fake, manipulate, or copy a chosen one who finally remembers who they are. Number 3, they squeezed, but you split dimensions. They thought that pressure would crush you, but pressure only reminds the chosen they are made of compressed stars, coded storms, and blueprints that they were never meant to decode. They thought that this was the final squeeze, the grand collapse. Their logic was simple. Hit you where it hurts, compress you to the edge, shrink your world until you beg for air. But what they never accounted for was this chosen ones. Don't break in compression. They expand. What feels like a cage to the ordinary becomes a launch chamber for the chosen. The tighter it gets, the clearer your mind becomes, the more chaotic the scene, the sharper your instincts strike. They underestimated that deeply embedded system in your spirit. The code written before you were ever born. What they triggered in you wasn't panic. It was primordial recall or remembering, because you don't respond to threats like the average soul. You categorize them. You dissect them with terrifying clarity. Your awareness doesn't just sense danger, it maps it. You know, when something is coming before it even arrives, they call it paranoia. But you know it's premonition. They call it overthinking. But your spirit is already sorting energetic frequencies like a wartime intelligence agent. Understand this. You were born with an internal control center, a cosmic surveillance system. not to spy, but to interpret, to filter the false from the real. When others drown in confusion, you swim through data like it's second nature. You don't just walk into chaos, you decode it. You walk into disarray and hear the unspoken. You feel the unseen. And in a room full of noise, your spirit sorts every voice into categories: threat, test, ally, parasite, distraction, assignment, elevation. You've always had this ability, but they tried to drown it in doubt, tried to silence it with gaslighting, tried to make you second guess your own genius. You're too sensitive. You read too much into things. You're imagining it. You weren't imagining anything at all. You were translating a language that they couldn't hear. The language of divine pattern, of unseen shifts, of subtle betrayal hiding in pretty words. And now that you've stopped denying it, it's terrifying to them, because now you're lethal. You don't just sense energy any longer. You dismantle it clean surgically. You no longer chase every battle swing wildly or burn out in the fog of confusion. You've stepped into a higher knowing, and you recognize which forces require confrontation and which just don't need to be confronted, need to be starved of your presence. That's mastery, that's control, and that level of discernment is what makes you a weapon. They can't predict anymore. They wanted you confused, but compression brought clarity. They wanted you scattered, but the squeeze made your mind laser focused. And now you're making moves with precision that look supernatural to them. That's because it is. Your instincts are the sharpened edge of your spirit's archive. A running history of every energetic encounter you've ever had and every soul contract you've ever signed or shredded. You've met these frequencies before. Maybe not in this form, but your DNA remembers. You don't need to study your enemies when your energy exposes them for you. You don't need revenge when your alignment automatically flips the tables, and you don't need permission to win when the entire universe is wired to root favor back to your doorstep the moment you stop doubting yourself. Let's be clear, your clarity under compression is not normal. It's spiritual technology. It's a threat. It scares them. It makes your silence louder than their chaos. And what truly messes with them is the way you started walking through storms without asking for umbrellas. They see you moving with confidence, not because it's easy, but because you finally realize that being chosen doesn't mean you're spared the pressure. It means you're built for it. Remember this. The squeeze was supposed to make you fold, but instead it activated your original programming. You were never here to merely exist. You were deployed, inserted into madness with memory intact. This is why the heat didn't kill you. It revealed you. The pressure didn't end you. It decoded you. You don't panic when the walls close in, because something ancient inside of you wakes up in those moments. That's when your spirit says, finally, let's begin. And the truth they can't face their final move was your first step. Their final compression was your final form. So no, this wasn't a defeat. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of what happens when a chosen one remembers everything. Number 4, they looked right at you and still couldn't see you. They tried to study your moves, but you were the test. They could never pass, hidden in plain sight, coded in silence, and armored by the very war they thought would end you. They walked past you, talked around you, dismissed you, laughed at you, overlooked you. Good, let them. That invisibility wasn't a curse, it was a cloaking device engineered by the universe itself. You weren't hiding. You were being veiled, not because you weren't ready, but because they weren't allowed to see what you were carrying until it was too late. The protection was never obvious because you were always the weapon disguised as a witness. And now they're confused, scratching their heads, wondering how you've become untouchable in a world they once controlled. Here's the answer. They'll never admit you were hiding in plain sight until the compression activated your reveal. Everything they thought was random. Misfortune in your life was actually strategic positioning. Every closed door, every betrayal, every moment of rejection was the universe locking you in, keeping you untainted while you were being loaded with codes they couldn't intercept. See what they thought was weakness. Your silence, your isolation, your strange energy was just stealth. You weren't broken. You were buffered. You weren't being delayed. You were being deployed. And the moment they thought they had you pinned, that's when the shock came. That's when the shift hit. That's when they realized they had been circling something they couldn't decode for years, because your next level was never going to be handed to you. It was going to be delivered in disguise, wrapped in resistance, hidden inside hostility. That's how the universe works for the chosen. It sends your blessing wearing a mask, and only those who know how to see past the chaos, who can decode the disguise, ever get the treasure. You were trained for this, and not by books or mentors, but by life, by pain, by silence, by long nights where your only teacher was your own survival instinct, that problem draining your soul right now, that fire breathing down your neck. It's not here to kill you, it's here to crown you. It's not the end of your path, it's the elevation in costume. The paradox of the chosen is this: the same thing meant to crush you becomes your stage, but only your subconscious was setting up energetic tripwires every time a hidden enemy stepped too close, every time a masked saboteur pretended to be a friend. Your system lit up. You may not have always understood it, but you felt it, that gut twist, that sudden drain, that fog of confusion that wasn't weakness, that was surveillance, spiritual alarms. If you stop running away from it and start facing it like the warrior you were always meant to be, because here's what they really didn't see coming. Your defenses were never external. They were spiritual. While they were stalking your steps, your subconscious was setting up energetic tripwires, ringing warnings from your higher knowing, telling you who is real, who is fake, and who is coming with poison disguised as praise. And now that you know, now that you remember who you are, you become unstoppable, because you are no longer just fighting from the front anymore. You are guarding from the inside out. You are no longer just reacting. You are anticipating. You are watching frequencies instead of watching faces. You are feeling through conversations instead of falling for appearances. Chosen one, this is what your adversaries are unable to comprehend. You were being prepared long before you had language to describe what was happening to you. Your soul knew this day would come. Your energy trained in silence for a war your mind didn't even see coming while you were just trying to survive. Your spirit was setting traps, installing sensors, hardwiring resistance into your very essence. And now those alarms are going off, the veil is lifting, and everything that was meant to harm you is being flipped into harvest. You are no longer reacting to chaos. You're commanding clarity. You are no longer hoping for peace. You are generating it with presence alone. And those who once ignored you are now compelled to watch you gain ground. They had the idea that they would be able to lock you down. They can't stand it. They can't stop it. And most importantly, they can't comprehend it, because how can you fight someone who has already seen the blueprint of the battle? How can you contain someone whose power was hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right frequency to unlock? You don't. You can't. All you can do is watch. So to the chosen ones who are still experiencing uncertainty, stop looking for external proof. The universe did not choose you for their validation. It chose you to disrupt the system. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be known by impact. You're here to make frequencies shake. You're here to wake sleeping souls and dismantle dark agendas just by being who you are. The gift was never in what they could see. It was always in what they couldn't. And now that invisibility is gone, your light is unleashed, your presence is loud, your protection still impenetrable. They thought they had you figured out, but you were hidden in plain sight, and now they finally see what can never be unseen. Number 5, they tried to rewrite your story, but you're the system upgrade. They didn't see coming. They wanted you stuck in loops, lost in lies, trapped in cycles. But the code in your soul hacked their illusion, and now the matrix is bleeding at the seams. Let's make something very clear. You are not broken. You are rebooting. What feels like exhaustion isn't failure. It's a full-blown, top-to-bottom, cosmic-level reconstruction. While they assumed you were short-circuiting under pressure, what's actually happening is far more dangerous to their agenda. You're upgrading in real time. And when a chosen one upgrades reality, it bends to match that overwhelming fatigue, that inner chaos, that sense that you can barely breathe, barely move, and barely think straight. This is not a sign of weakness. Rather, it is a signal, a sacred alarm, because when the universe prepares you for the next dimension, it does not give you a gentle nudge. Rather, it detonates the old system, and you, the chosen one, are currently standing in the rubble of who you used to be, while the blueprint of your future self is being built from sacred fire. They believed that they could program you to stay small, condition you to chase crumbs, and they thought they could gaslight you into believing that you were the issue. But what they failed to realize was that beneath all of the programming, beneath all of the trauma, and beneath all of the human noise, there was a consciousness that cannot be contained. It was a knowing that predates this life, and it was a vibration that shakes false foundations. Now that vibration has reached critical mass, which is why the battle became louder. It is also why the pressure increased, because this is the final compression before the break into expansion. You are not just going through it, you are being reformatted. Your old belief systems are disintegrating. Survival scripts that you learned from traumatic experiences are being deleted. Fears that have been passed down from bloodlines are being replaced. And your soul is going through a complete high-level reprogramming, because the version of you that is coming next cannot function using outdated software. This is because the old code was not designed for where you are going. You require faster thoughts, deeper discernment, bulletproof clarity, and a force field surrounding your peace. The universe is writing all of this into you now, line by. This is the reason why you are exhausted. This is the reason why you feel pulled in every direction. This is because your spirit is busy multitasking at a supernatural level while simultaneously laying down the framework for your new reality. This is the reason why nothing makes sense. This is the reason why people are falling off. This is the reason why old desires no longer feel fulfilling. This is the reason why old distractions are unable to hold your attention. The frequency has shifted, and your body, mind, and soul are catching up to the download of the current intensity of your struggle is not a sign you're losing. It's a sign you're at the edge of total breakthrough. This is the crowning test, the cosmic threshold. It's the part of the storm where everything inside of you screams to give up right before you snap into a new timeline. That's how dimensional elevation works. It doesn't show up in peace, it shows up in pressure, so fierce it forces everything false to collapse, and only truth can rise from the ashes. You've noticed it, haven't you? That deep soul-level awareness that you're not the same anymore, that something irreversible has happened inside you. You're no longer chasing people. You're no longer begging to be seen. You've stopped explaining your energy. You're finally starting to see how powerful you've been all along, and that realization alone is a threat to every system that once benefited from your confusion. They can't reach you the same way anymore. The old attacks don't stick. Same manipulations fall flat. You've changed your frequency, and with that change, you've opted out of their control loops. That's why you feel like a ghost to the people who once fed off your light. That's why your very existence now feels confrontational to those still trapped in the illusion, this moment right here, this burnout, this breakdown, this I can't do this anymore moment is not the end. It's the signal. It means the reset is almost complete. You're not stuck. You're installing an entirely new operating system, one capable of handling the weight of everything that's coming, the visibility, the responsibility, the authority, the power. That next level requires a version of you that can hold it without folding. So this is what the fire is for. Let's be clear. Your spiritual DNA always knew this moment would come. You've been preparing for this long before this life, and every hardship, every heartbreak, every betrayal has been a trigger to unlock another piece of your evolution. Nothing was wasted. No pain was random. Every scar holds data. Every lesson carries light, and now all of that is being pulled together, recompiled into a version of you that walks with clarity. The world can't corrupt. They thought they could stall your growth, but all they did was delay their own downfall. They thought they could rewrite your destiny, but your soul was hardwired with the override code. And now you rise not from ego, not from vengeance, but from the undeniable pull of purpose encoded deep in your essence. Ready to fully activate, the universe is not punishing you. It is positioning you. This is your final compression before manifestation. This is the system reboot before the system reset. This is the demolition before divine construction. You are not dying. You are waking up. The old you is gone. The new you is loading. And when it finishes, everything changes. Number 6. You were never the problem. You were always the power they couldn't control. They labeled you unstable, dramatic, delusional, because nothing terrifies a fragile system more than a soul it can't sedate. Let's stop pretending you've always been a threat. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your very existence challenges everything false they've built from the moment your light flickered. It disrupted the program. Your energy didn't ask permission. Your vision didn't fit in their box, and your presence, it activated awareness in others. They worked hard to keep asleep. That's why it got heavy. That's why the attacks multiplied. That's why hell threw the whole playbook at you, because your breakthrough isn't coming. It's already breaking through, and the system is panicking. Your spiritual muscles are under construction in ways that most can't even fathom. You're not just evolving, you're becoming a vessel for authority that makes the whole matrix flinch. You're not moving with ego, you're moving with encoded clarity. And that's a direct threat to every structure built on confusion, control, and compromise. This is why it hurts. This is why it's dark, because you're not being tested for failure. You're being forged for leadership, which the average mind can't handle. Let's talk about that vision that's inside of you, the one that you've tried to ignore, suppress, shrink, bury under responsibilities, and bury under realism. Yeah, that's the blueprint that wakes you up first thing in the morning. With a pressure in your chest and a knowing you can't unfill the one they called unrealistic, arrogant, or downright insane. That's not a fantasy. That's your instruction manual. That's the code your soul signed off on before you were even born. And now, no matter what the world says, no matter how loud the war gets, no matter how close the collapse feels, you can't unsee it. You can't unknow it. You were never meant to settle. You were never built for average. You were never wired for quiet submission. That deep unrest, that inner scream every time you try to make yourself smaller for their comfort. That's your spirit refusing to play dead for a system that fears your awakening. Because once you walk fully into who you are, once you stop negotiating with fear, once you claim your space without apology, you destabilize everything they've engineered to contain the truth. This is why they call you too much, why they provoke emotional reactions, set traps, and hope you self-destruct, because if they can't beat you outright, they'll try to convince you to dismantle yourself. Don't fall for it when the pressure tightens and your reality starts glitching. Don't retreat. Recognize the moment. That's the final compression. That's the birth canal of your purpose. Tearing through dimensions, they feel it. That's why they're escalating. Desperation is a symptom of their defeat, not your weakness. While others chose safety, you chose soul while they built comfort. You built courage while they sold out, you dug in. You've watched people around you settle for practicality, dressed as peace. They signed contracts with mediocrity and called it wisdom. But you couldn't not because you were arrogant, but because your spirit wouldn't allow it, despite the fact that everything around you is telling you to give up. There is something within you that doesn't want to die. This is not a sign of stubbornness. Rather, it is alignment with a larger design that doesn't care how impossible it appears. This design doesn't ask for validation. It only requires your yes. Therefore, you should stand your ground, shake your head if you have to cry, but don't bow down, because here's the secret. They don't want you to know that you've already won. The intensity you are feeling right now is the tantrum of a dying program, not a sign of your defeat. The darkness that is surrounding you is not the end. Rather, it's the final contraction before the uncontainable release. Dawn is not a metaphor, it's a certainty, and your glow up won't be gentle. It'll be violent to everything that tried to suppress you. You are not here to blend. You are here to blast open false realities. You're not a misfit. You're a missile, a soul weaponized by truth, activated by pain, and aimed at the heart of deception. That's why the path's been lonely. That's why it's been so heavy, because there aren't many built for this level of spiritual combustion. But you were born for it. You were tailored by the universe to shake systems. You were carved from fire to expose the lies. And now the pressure that once tried to crush you is becoming the platform for your rise. Let them talk, let them stare, let them twist the narrative. You keep walking, you keep burning, you keep rising, because the system is cracking. And it started the moment you refuse to shrink. Number 7, they let the storm touch you because you were built to carry fire. They didn't save you from the fire because you were never meant to be spared. You were meant to emerge carrying the flame that others would follow. Let's do away with those illusions. those desires that are deep within your chest, the ones that won't die no matter how many times life tries to stomp them out. They weren't just dreams. They weren't random. They weren't ego. They were planted like markers on a sacred map that only your soul could read. And every time you got close to them, the world tried to pull you off course every time you said, "This is it." Life hit you with a storm, and then came the silence. You asked where the help was. You begged for intervention. You cried out, "Where's my protection, my breakthrough, my sign?" And all you heard was quiet, but hear this now, that silence wasn't abandonment, it was activation. It was the universe standing still, knowing that if it intervened too soon, you'd never discover the furnace-level force sleeping inside you. Because your assignment isn't just about you, it's beyond you. This isn't about personal comfort, it's about cosmic commission. You were built to break ground, not to camp out in survival mode and survival alone. This was never the end game, so when the destruction struck, when it appeared that protection had failed, and when everything around you crumbled, what actually occurred was a revelation, not of the world, but of you. You didn't see it at the time, but the lack was training, the chaos was calibration, the confusion was a clearing of false paths. You didn't lose direction. You were being disconnected from what wasn't aligned with your real destination. And let's talk about that destination, that assignment, because this is where the majority of people stop thinking you weren't sent here just to heal. You were sent here to shift frequencies and reroute systems, to be the walking proof that divine design doesn't need easy roads to fulfill purpose. You were the blueprint wrapped in battle scars. Your growth didn't come through escape, it came through equipping. Your protection didn't come from removing the threat, it came from removing the threat. This entire journey is about leveling up, glowing up, or finally getting theirs. No, that's surface talk. That's egoistic bait. Your mission was never just about your success. It was about the impact your soul had on the world. Came from upgrading your ability to see through it. You didn't need less pain, you needed more power. And that's exactly what was downloaded into your being when no one else showed up to save you, the forces guiding your evolution. They weren't being cruel, they were being intentional. They knew what you didn't, that in order to carry the weight of what's coming, you couldn't afford to be fragile. You couldn't be someone who cracks every time a door slams or someone changes their tone. You had to be forged. Your spine had to be reinforcement through silence. Your heart had to beat through disappointment. Your faith had to stand on nothing but knowing, because the path you walk requires sight beyond evidence. And now you're here, and though it still hurts at times, though you're still climbing something in you knows, it was never for nothing that thing inside you that wouldn't quit. That was the evidence, that persistent, unreasonable desire that survived every heartbreak, betrayal, and failure that was. Your assignment screaming to be remembered, chosen one. This is your turning point, not the moment when you will be able to look back and realize that you have everything gets easy, but the moment when you stop expecting it to. The moment when you own the pain, not as proof that you're forgotten, but as proof that you're favored. You were called beyond the crowd, beyond comfort, beyond normal. And because of that, your development came with different rules. They weren't trying to break you, they were forcing your inheritance to the surface. They were stripping you of every false reliance, so that your authority couldn't be stolen, mimicked, or sold, so that when you speak, the air shifts, when you move, the energy realign, and when you stand, real power stands with you. Stop expecting the journey of a world changer to look like a vacation. Your battles weren't punishment. They were prerequisites. Your isolation wasn't rejection. It was refinement. And your delays weren't denials. They were downloads in disguise. You asked where the help was, you became it. You asked where the guidance was, it was wired into your intuition. You asked where the protection was, it was inside you, waiting for the day you stopped looking outside yourself for safety. So no, you weren't abandoned. You have been entrusted with vision, entrusted with fire, and entrusted with an assignment that not only liberates you, but also sets others free through your transformation. You did not simply survive the silence. You absorbed its codes, and now you are not just chosen. You have been commissioned number 8. They attempted to break you, but all they did was build a weapon. The world is not prepared for the same pain that they hoped would silence you. And it is now the exact frequency that is shaking the gates of everything they swore you'd never reach. Let's cut the softness. Your worst enemy moments were never wasted. That pain that nearly snapped your soul in two, that wasn't the end, it was technology kingdom. Technology, heaven's software, disguised as heartbreak. Every betrayal, every breakdown, every soul-splitting silence was encoded with power. Power that now fuels your rise. You were being programmed with precision because only those who've bled in the shadows can carry light that can't be faked. And now the switch is flipped. Acceleration has been authorized. What once crawled now flies years are collapsing into weeks. Doors that refuse to open are being blown off the hinges. You are standing in a time warp, compressed timelines, divine disruption and unapologetic arrival. The spiritual laws governing you have shifted. You are no longer under delay. You are under deployment. So let them watch. Let them wonder how you got here, because what they thought would destroy you has now become the very platform of your power. Number 9. This is the part where you either rise or stay a spectator. They bet you'd never awaken, that you'd watch, nod, scroll, and never act. They didn't count on your wings breaking through that strange surge inside you. That's not hype. It's not delusion, it's activation. You're not just feeling different, you're becoming untouchable. The system is cracking beneath your feet because your energy has outgrown gravity. You were born with wings, not for beauty, but for warfare. And now they're unfolding. But let's get brutally honest. Are you really chosen, or are you just consuming chosen energy? Like it's contempt waiting for a breakthrough. You won't become, because the ones who shift timelines don't just talk about it, they move, they sacrifice, they obey the pull, even when it rips their comfort to pieces. I've faced what lurks beyond the veiled forces that mock the idea that any of us would ever find our power, let alone each other. And yet here you are. Hearing this message isn't random. It's a test, and only the real ones recognize the frequency. This isn't for the curious. This is for the committed. So I ask again, are you one of us, or will you just keep watching while we burn through dimensions? And now we arrive at the edge, the threshold where watchers become warriors and truth steps into form. If this message hit your core, it's because you were never meant to stay hidden. Your emergence is not optional anymore. It's inevitable if you're ready to own that truth. Like this video, subscribe for more soul-igniting content and drop the number 77 in the comments to let us know you felt this. Share this with another chosen one who's on the edge of awakening. The more we rise, the faster the system falls. This isn't hype, it's alignment. Let's move.